Okay, so hello everybody again, and welcome all the guests. We know many of you, of course, and today we're going to be hearing from Judith G. Nelson, who is the founder of Sage Singers, but also she has a wealth of experience and knowledge about Gaelic choruses, gay and lesbian activism, thank you. And I don't want to take a lot of time introducing her, but she's a lovely woman and we love her, and she never stops working for our community. So Judith, it's to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mo. So everybody has a story. Everybody has a tale to tell. Everybody's learned a lesson in life that they know very well. Tell your story. We all remember the song by David Maddox that we sang at the Coming Out concert last October. And it's all true. We've heard some incredible stories from our Sage Singers members this past year and a half. Kate Burns, Christine Monks, Don Johnson, Robin Cohen, Holly Hares, Sam Gallegos, Peggy Gardner, Greg Eisler, Betsy McConnell, and Mo McGowan have all generously shared themselves with us. I'm excited to talk about my life, and I also want to be a bit vulnerable with all of you, my family of choice. I will talk and give vignettes about 4 overlapping themes: my life as the granddaughter of 4 Scandinavian immigrant farmers in Minnesota, my career as a closeted educator, my own retirement and the aging process, and finally, the founding of Sage Singers. And as you will see, singing and being a Gaelic choruses groupie underlies a lot of my life. I want to talk about my Minnesota Scandinavian roots, as I believe that we carry our ancestors within us. On a trip to New York in 2009, Carol and I toured the museum at Ellis Island, and walking into that place that day was life-changing for me. The very first display was one of the baskets carried by immigrants, and I was blown away by remembering that my Swedish grandmother carried a basket exactly like those in the display. And here it is. It's like 120 years old. She carried it on the boat with her. That caused me to begin asking questions about her and her family. In my later research, I found that my grandmother's mother had died on the voyage to America in 1887, probably of cholera, which was a pandemic of that time. My father was sweet and kind, not unlike his family. The huge extended family, all Swedish immigrants, were happy and helpful people. My mother, on the other hand, came from a local Norwegian immigrant family of 10 children who lived. I think that she did not get enough attention. Life was hard, and the main purpose of living for that family was to put food on the table and clothe all of those kids. I will say here that although my mother and I were not close emotionally, we did have something in common. We both loved to sing. On our much dreaded, on my part, supposedly mother and daughter bonding shopping trips to Mankato, a 40-mile trip from our home, we would sing in the car, swinging along the open road, music alone shall live, let us sing together. I still hate shopping, but I still love singing. Anyway, in order to survive, I became a shy, anxious, introvert, invisible, a listener, an observer, an idea person, as well as stubborn and rebellious. My modus operandi went something like this. In order to pay my rent for being alive on this earth, I had to be so good. I had to take care of my mother's emotional needs, and there were many. I finally figured out I was a homosexual much later than most people do. By this time, I was ensconced in a career in education, and the closet was very painful. I remember reading some research back then that said closeted gay teachers become a fraction of whom they might have become had they not had to worry every day about someone finding out who they were and then possibly being fired from their teaching jobs. The world was also deprived as a result, and this is all sad but true. A wonderful memory I had from that time period, however, was when a dear straight friend of mine was pregnant and dying to come out. She came to town and to hear of nothing but going to the Three Sisters, also known as something else among lesbians. This was the old lesbian bar that I'm sure a lot of you women remember at 33rd and Mariposa here in Denver. Well, I was scared to death I would be seen by someone and lose my job. I was driving my old 80s vintage yellow Mercury, and we had found the bar in the low rent district of Old North Denver. I kept driving around it and around it and around it, waiting for the courage to park and get out of the car and enter the bar. I finally parked the car, and my 8 months pregnant friend and I walked into that darkened bar amid some stairs. Back then, in the 70s, lesbians did not get pregnant. There was a huge, old, beautiful, dark wooden bar that covered the entire wall inside, and it also had a mirror behind it. And on that mirror, in lipstick, was written, "Holly Near will appear at 6 p.m. I wondered to myself, who was Holly Near? And at precisely 6 p.m., Holly Near, who was then in her 20s, came out of nowhere like sunshine, jumped onto the stage and began singing. And I knew that I had come home and that everything would be all right. A few years later, in 1983, I met one Carol White at a Denver PFLAG meeting where I had brought my mother after coming out to her. I remember our first date at the old Tracks nightclub down by the railroad tracks. She told me she had at one time been a choral conductor. And I said to her, "Go for it." And as they say, the rest is history. Some lesbians have kids. Carol and I began having choruses. Singing in the Denver Women's Chorus that Carol had started at Gala 2 in Minneapolis in 1986 was also indeed life-changing. We were the very first women's chorus to appear at a Gala Choruses Festival and were treated royally. We were singing "No Child of Mine" on the stage at Orchestra Hall. "No child of mine will walk in darkness while I have light to give. No child of mine will need for love as long as I shall live." Written by our Colorado composer, Suzanne Pearson. All the women at the festival were singing it, and during her solo, Suzanne forgot the words to the song that she had composed. Not to worry, the women from the DWC joined in, singing with her, and we pulled it off seamlessly. Upon entering restaurants during that festival, we would get standing ovations from the male Gala festival participants. And at the same festival, my brother, my Minnesota brother, did come to hear the Denver Women's Chorus sing the Schubert Mass in G with the Dick Kramer Chorale of San Francisco. Paul was sitting to the front of the orchestra hall with other members of our group, including Bob Moore. My brother, for whom music means country and western, would get up to leave during the movement changes of the Schubert. And Bob Moore, who was sitting right next to him, would grab him by the back of his belt and pull him back down. Paul said afterward, "That darn thing ended 5 or 6 times." Also at that festival, the concluding concert featured all the singers from the 16 gay men's choruses and the Denver Women's Chorus, singing a commissioned work by well-known composer John David Ernest, entitled Jubilation. We were singing with orchestra and conducted by Philip Grinnell, who is a famous Twin Cities conductor, and the lyrics were powerful. "There is a mighty presence this day, felt in the blood and felt along the way, that rolls through all creation." And a side story to this, when I was wanting to remember those lyrics, I actually emailed John David Ernest, email courtesy of the internet. He wrote a note, quote, "Your message brought back many fond memories of that wonderful gala event in 1986. I'm delighted that the festival is once again taking place in Minneapolis, and I do hope that this pandemic will not prevent the event from happening. Yes, I'm still living in New York, 52 years now, and have been sequestered in my apartment for the past 6 weeks. I hope you and all your friends in your chorus are well and staying safe. I wish you and the Sage Singers Denver all the best for a great success at the Gala Festival. Sincere regards, John David." After that incredible concert high, and we're still in 1986 in Minneapolis, all of the 1,000 singers flowed out onto Nicollet Plaza and sang to the heavens what the hall could not contain. We sang and sang and sang every song that we could think of. Interwoven in all these stories about choruses was the fact that Carol and I were both always working day jobs in which we had to be closeted. My job as a high school counselor caused me to feel very vulnerable. And here's a good example. I was a sponsor of the school's peer counseling program. We tried to educate students on various topics that they might come across in their work as peer counselors. I was in my principal's office to ask him if it would be okay to have a set of parents of gay people come and talk to our kids. I had a good and respectful relationship with this administrator. So I was devastated inside myself when his response to me was, "That would be okay. We just don't want any of those talking to our kids." Incredible highs were experienced by Carol and me in our bifurcated existence. One example of many being when I returned from the Gay Games, Vancouver, in August of 1990, just before I had to return to work. Carol had organized and conducted the very first Gay Games festival chorus of 400 singers from around the world, and it was a huge success. So when I returned to my job the day after returning from Vancouver, the typical question among the members of my department was, "So, did you do anything exciting this summer?" My answer, "Oh, nothing special." I like reviewing my life in terms of what was happening with Gala choruses. A great example being the Gala Festival in Denver in 1992, when there were lots of AIDS deaths happening. All of the choruses were singing about the anguish in our community. And just one example, Dr. Timothy Seelig, now conducting the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus, at that time was conducting the Turtle Creek Chorale of Dallas. Like many of the choruses, the Turtle Creek Chorale had commissioned a piece about HIV/AIDS. Theirs was entitled, "When We No Longer Touch." Every attendee at that concert received a copy of the classic book, how to survive the loss of a love. And to this day, I remember the very last line of the Agnus Dei that went like this. And after a time, I shall miss missing loving you. That was also a very significant time for our community in Colorado, because after that high experiencing at the Gala Festival in July, the election the following November was when Amendment 2 passed. And so with our local chorus harmony that Carol had started, in 1993, we were able to experience the work now familiar to Sage Singers, Boys and Girls with Stories, written by David Maddox. David himself came to our retreat, worked with us, and then played the keyboard for the concert itself at the old Denver Auditorium Theater. Here's where I want to mention how, for me, listening to music from these gala choruses was so therapeutic as I drove to work daily to my high school counseling job in Arvada. There was the daily anxiety of not being able to be who I was from the moment I entered the school building in the morning until the moment I left in the evening. However, listening to cassette tapes, for instance, from the Minneapolis Gala Festival and to Boys and Girls with Stories on my way to work somehow helped. These words from the epilogue of Boys and Girls gave me very much strength to get through the days. Someday, when there's more understanding, when our rights to be equal and safe are upheld, someday, when our differences join us, not divide and defeat us, when the anger is quelled, someday, with our hands reaching outward, we'll arrive at the crossroads of a new unity. Someday, there's a glorious morning. There's a morning of freedom. There's a better day dawning on me. By this time, Carol was beginning to think about retiring from conducting, and I was beginning to think about retiring from my career. And so, with 31 years in the school system, I retired at age 53 in 1997. I was the age of some of our youngest Sage Singers members. One of the first things I did after retiring was to take a class on aging at Naropa University in Boulder. A concept that stuck with me is this one. There are 3 stages of aging. Number 1, the youth of aging. Number 2, the middle age of aging. And number 3, the old age of aging. I'm so proud to be here at Sage Singers, where we have singers in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, all singing together. Anyway, I guess you could say that when I retired, I was in the youth of old age. Another first for me was to join a group that was going to hike the Grand Canyon, a wonderful experience. Just prior to my hiking the Grand Canyon, Matthew Shepard was murdered. And the night he suffered at the fence, he was not alone. A brilliant gay composer who is originally from Minnesota and studied music at St. Olaf College, Craig Hella Johnson, has composed a glorious piece entitled Considering Matthew Shepard. Sheriff's Deputy Reggie Flutie, who was a woman, was the first to report to the scene of Matthew's murder. And she told Judy, Matthew's mother, that as she ran to the fence, she saw a large doe lying near Matt, as if the deer had been keeping him company all through the night. So the deer song is part of this piece. So the deer writes in this song, all night I lay there beside you. I cradled your pain in my care. We moved through creation together, and we know there's a welcoming there. I wore rainbow keychains on both of my hiking poles as I hiked the Grand Canyon in honor of and in memory of Matthew Shepard. My next project after the Grand Canyon began when I saw an ad in the Denver Post with this caption: "Would you go to the ends of the earth to find a vaccine for AIDS?" I was able to find some crazy people who wanted to train for the Alaska AIDS vaccine ride, which involved riding our bikes 6 days and 500 miles in Alaska, a fundraiser for an AIDS vaccine, and this was in 2001. At the top of one of the passes in Alaska, still being in my youth of aging, I looked around for whom they were talking about when some young women told my 2 riding partners and me that they had had their butts kicked by 3 senior riders going up one of the endless hills on that ride. Then I realized she was talking about us. I do remember getting to the top of that pass, watching a grizzly bear in the distance run across the road that we were riding on, and the 3 of us doing a hula dance to celebrate. I could say a lot more about my retirement projects. The Danskin Mini Triathlon, a bout with cancer, that wasn't on my list, nonviolent civil disobedience, and an organization called Soul Force, which is how I met Kate Burns, an incredible trip to Africa, and the exhaustive research project into my Scandinavian roots, which culminated in a trip to southern Sweden to meet some truly remarkable cousins with whom Carol and I are friends to this day. In fact, the latest news is that Ingi, the primary person there, who is now in his late 80s, is hospitalized and probably won't live. He's been alone from family visiting due to the coronavirus. However, now the family is permitted to visit because the end is so close. Now, yet another gala experience, this one in 2016, right here in Denver. It was 2 weeks after the mass murder of 49 people in the Pulse gay nightclub in Orlando. Signs hung from the garage parking lot at the DCPA saying, "We are Orlando," while all of the Colorado gala choruses sang "America the Beautiful" from the various levels of the garage. Probably the most moving and memorable moment of that festival came on the second day in the Ellie Calkins Opera House. The last choir to perform in the 3 to 5 concert block was the Orlando Gay Chorus, for which every seat in the alley was taken and people were standing behind every section in the audience. As approximately 65 men and women took the stage and ascended onto the risers, there was a several minutes long standing ovation before they sounded a note. After 3 or 4 songs, the conductor took the microphone and began talking about the Pulse nightclub shooting and how it had shocked their whole community, and that their chorus had come together and answered the call to help heal the LGBTQs and everyone else in the city by singing. They had sung at over 20 different events, vigils, and memorial services within the last 2 weeks. Then he said, "If you know this next song, please sing along with us." And the song was "You'll Never Walk Alone." Well, 2,000 singers in the audience joined with the Orlando chorus, and we all raised our voices in an unforgettable mutual message of assurance that gave that song more meaning than it had ever had before. The second time through, everyone was standing and holding hands as tears flowed freely down our collective cheeks. No one who was there will ever forget it. Then I dug back into my gala choruses experiences and thought about how gala by now had every conceivable kind of chorus, men's choruses, women's choruses, mixed choruses, youth choruses, trans choruses, everything but senior choruses. Now, there was a project looking to happen. I simply could not shake the idea of trying to form a senior chorus. The logical person to conduct such a group was my sweetie. I, of course, asked her first, and she reassured me that she was not going to take on such a task at this stage in her life, and she wished me luck. Then I spoke with Bob Moore, asked if he might want to get involved. He also assured me he wasn't interested and wished me luck. I asked him if he had any ideas for a conductor, and he emailed me about a young conductor named Kevin Crow, who conducted Sine Nomine. Said he didn't have contact info, but I could probably find it by Googling Sine Nomine, which I did. I wrote a note of inquiry and received back a very intelligent one-page response asking totally appropriate questions from none other than our Kevin. Kevin and I met for coffee at the Barnes & Noble on Colorado Boulevard, not far from where Carol and I live. I was back home within a half an hour, to which Carol said, "I guess that didn't go well." And I replied, "On the contrary, we have a conductor." In July or August of that year, there was a picnic at Cheeseman Park for seniors, sponsored by the center, which Carol and I attended. I was in my shy mode, but my sweetie pushed me to get up and do an announcement about the senior choir idea and the upcoming luncheon at the center. And we still have with us some of those picnic attendees as current Sage singers: Christine Marks, Larry Krabby, Maynard Hershon, and Scott West. Rinaldo Morales at the center was also very helpful. He had suggested that we might want to do a presentation at one of the Lunch and Learn gatherings for senior LGBTQ folks at the center. We set a date for late September of 2018. And some of the people we still have with us who attended that lunch are these: Scott West, Larry Krabby, Carol White, Tim Wilson, Joe Contardo, Kathy Riley, Betsy McConnell, Kate Burns, Maynard Hershon, Ruby Gondres, Larry O'Donnell, Greg Eisler, Don Johnson, Doug Miller, and Teresa Zirkelbach. I gave this speech. Now I'm quoting myself. "Welcome. We're so glad to have each and every one of you here at our Lunch and Learn, in which we will delve into the possibility of forming a senior chorus for our Denver Metro LGBT community, something that, as far as we know, has not been done before anywhere. My name is Judith Nelson, a 74-year-old lesbian who has a wonderful partner of 35 years, Carol White. Many of you know Carol's work in the gay choral community. She's saying she is not wanting to start another chorus at this point, but her partner is. So why? I became inspired when Carol and I viewed this movie called Young at Heart, about a straight chorus for seniors, all of whom are over 80 years old. We all know that in our culture, old people are not valued as highly as youth are. And of course, in our culture, LGBT folks, frankly, are not valued as highly either. So we have a double whammy, being old and being gay. And so it's time to stop apologizing for who we are. It's time to stop hiding. It's time to quit pretending we're not as old as we are. And it's time to stop supporting the huge anti-aging industry. Our lives have been unique as well as varied. We have seemingly seen it all. Stories of bullying, marrying someone of the opposite sex in order to fit in or get cured, hiding in the closet, rejection by families of origin and our churches, the HIV/AIDS pandemic, Amendment 2 here in Colorado, etc. The kids coming up now are reaping huge benefits from standing on our shoulders, as we also reaped huge benefits from standing on the shoulders of those who came before us. So, in my opinion, the time is perfect for us not only to accept all of this, but also to zestfully embrace and celebrate and share our lives by singing during this challenging, unique, and wonderful time in our lives. I also want to say here that if we do establish such a singing group, I hope that we do not call it Young at Heart. I think that using the term young precludes the incredible life experiences that we all have had and had not had when we were young. Following the movie snippet, our young conductor, Kevin Crow, and How Could We Be So Lucky, will do a mini presentation. Kevin conducts 2 other community choirs in this area, and a couple of interesting things about him. He spent his first 2 years of college at the Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland, and he's been with his partner for 14 years. He has a bachelor's and a master's degree in music, and he's very interested in making our musical experiences together ones that are relevant to our singers and to our audiences. I also have a personal goal, that being that our group travels to Minneapolis for the 2020 Gala Choruses Festival. And if you have never attended a gala festival, you must talk with someone who has. And we perform there, perhaps with seniors from other cities where there's never before been a gay senior chorus performing. So please enjoy. Thank you again for being here today. Close quote. So we were off and running. Of course, continuing to recruit those early singers, lots of lunches at Racine's, trips to organizations for elder LGBTs, lots of emails, discussions, rudimentary email lists, etc. Just one example of recruiting. Carol and I both remembered Bill Westergaard from when Carol conducted and he had sung in harmony. We'd lost track of him, but remembered that he had married Patrick, the nephew of a dear old friend of ours who is now 90 years old. I kept after her partner to see if she had contact info for Bill. She was finally able to track down his email address. She forwarded it to us, and as a result, we have our beloved Bill singing with us now. We started rehearsing at the First Baptist Church in early October that year because of Kevin's connections there. We usually had about 15 or 16 singers attending, and we had a great time. I started sending out weekly emails, which at that point contained our fun facts. We ate Don Johnson's homemade chocolate chip cookies. We had stick-on name tags and balloons to welcome everyone. We didn't have enough singers really for 4 parts, and that was when Kevin commissioned the Right to Love medley, originally for a smaller number of voices that we had in those days. I remember placing an ad in the DGMC's holiday concert program, inviting people to join Sage Singers, which by that time had a name, one that came to me on a fall bike ride that year. And at this point, I want to congratulate each and every one of you for having the courage to be able to acknowledge your own aging process, and it truly is a process. We have noticed that we have to be very careful, sensitive while recruiting singers in terms of ageism. Lots of denial out there, and it's a very individual thing. In fact, I think there's a concept also that we could call internalized ageism, not unlike internalized homophobia, meaning that we internalize how society sees us as old people, invisible, not pretty, negative, pitiful, disabled, etc. Aging is a very challenging time. And I'd just like to share a brief quote from Jeff Foster about that. You will lose everything, your money, your power, your fame, your success, perhaps even your memories. Your looks will go, loved ones will die, your body will fall apart. Everything that seems permanent is impermanent and will be smashed. Experience will gradually, or not so gradually, strip away everything that it can strip away. Waking up means facing this reality with open eyes and no longer turning away. And I would add, and embracing and celebrating and singing. So, along with recruiting singers, we were able to recruit some incredibly wonderful and competent leaders, the first of which was Tim Wilson, with whom I reconnected at a memorial service for one of our dear PFLAG moms. Tim's a friend of about 40 years for Carol and me, who has had oodles and gobs of experience in the LGBTQ movement over the years. At the luncheon meeting at the center, Kate Burns showed up. Kate has shared so generously of her wide-ranging skills, including creating our website, as well as our first Facebook page. And I was determined to get Mo McGowan, who had served superbly as the general manager of Harmony those years ago when Carol was conducting. Mo was in Ireland at the time, so she and I were emailing back and forth about the possibility of her serving Sage singers in that same capacity. She was hesitant, and then she finally caved. At the aforementioned DGMC concert, I ran into Janet Thomas, the retired founder and conductor of the Rainbow Chorus in Fort Collins. Spent a lot of time during that intermission trying to persuade her to join us. All of these people have such amazing skill sets. And so what we indeed have now is what I believe is the very first viable LGBTQ senior chorus in the country. I could not be more proud. It's turned out beyond my wildest dreams. Yes. I feel like I've come full circle from that first gala festival in Minneapolis in 1986, which, by the way, Kevin was at that time 5 years old. In March this year, just before the coronavirus shut down, Carol and I were married. We did send out an announcement of the occasion. I called my brother not long after that and had to ask him if he had seen the announcement. He said that he had seen it, and that was all he had to say. My personal mission for wanting to sing there again is to stand on the stage at Orchestra Hall in Minneapolis, the state of my birth and my heritage, as who I am, and feel fully embraced by this very special group of friends, my family of choice. And I'm heartbroken that we will not be in Minneapolis doing that this summer. I am hoping we'll be able to go in 2021. To conclude, in the words of one of our signature pieces, Stand in the Light, I would change the final words to say that the greatest risk by far is to stand in the light and not be seen as we are. Thank you very much. Love you all.
Woo!
Thank you.
Wow.
Wonderful. Thank you, Judith. Wow, that
ovation.
this is Mo speaking. Judith asked me to moderate maybe a comment or question and answer time.
There's Lynn.
So you want to mute yourselves unless you have a question or raise your hand. If you need to raise your hand down in the participant field at the bottom of the screen, if you click on that and click next to your name, you'll see, click on the bottom, you'll see raise hand. And Kevin, you can help me with this too. Okay, thanks. Okay, anyway, thank you, Judith. We get to everybody to express their thanks for your amazing journey and your amazing, gave me goosebumps, your talk. So I know you spent a lot of time on it. It was just beautiful. It was fantastic. So thank you. Thank you for sharing your heart with us. Do we have any?
All right, Mo, we've got Jana and Julie.
Huh?
Jana and
Hi.
Julie are up first.
Julie, go ahead.
Hi, Judith. I just wanted to say that I'm sorry that we all couldn't be there sitting right in front of you. And I know that it was not exactly how you envisioned it to be, but you brought tears to our eyes and, you know, joy and goosebumps and everything. And I just sat there listening to you, being so thankful that you went ahead and did this today. And I appreciate you for everything you are and have always been. And I love you so much. I just wanted to say that.
Beautiful. Thank you, Julie. I think you expressed what a lot of us feel. And I hope you're taking this all in, Judith. You deserve this.
Let's see, Barb Brown.
I just wanted to say a couple things. Just, you inspire me. The first time you talked, you inspired me. And I'll tell you more about that later, just the two of us. But I feel so honored to be a part of this group. I know I'm one of the newest members, and every one of you just means so much to me. And I'm inspired. I cried through the whole thing. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I can't wait to give you a hug.
Everybody right now, give Judith a hug right now.
Give me a hug. Yay. Sweet.
Anybody else?
Oh, Betsy.
Betsy McConnell. Have to unmute yourself.
It's just what everyone is saying, but I just have to say it too. It was so awesome. It was so awesome. And I thank you so much for giving us this chorus. It means so much to me.
A lot of people. Thank you.
Thank you, Betsy.
Christine.
Judith, that was just a lovely, lovely talk. I'm so glad I went to that picnic at Cheeseman and got to meet you and Carol. And I'm so glad I said yes when you invited me to join this group. And it was really touching hearing your story. And I just think both of you are amazing. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Kate.
Who?
Kate.
Kate.
Judith Nelson always said, you are the heart of this organization. And you just showed that so much, this overarching kind of whole vision of your life and the way that somehow we all got this gift that you thought of this idea. And here we are. I am so glad that this is recorded for our archives. I know that may seem like a silly thing, but I really think you did such a great job of marking everything that happened, and it'll be a priceless recording for our organization. Thank you so much, Judith.
Thank you. Thank you, Kate.
All right, Bill.
So, well, thanks for looking me up. I mean, I am so happy to be in the choir, and I just, my mother would be 93 at this point. She came out when she was 65, fully, but she would have loved to have sung in the choir, and she would have been a tenor too. So I used to be a bass, I still am. But anyway, from one Midwesterner to another, and the mother that can't speak for herself right now, you are a testament to just the solidness of a beautiful bunch of people that, I mean, wow, you had me crying the whole time. So anyway, enough. Love you, Judith.
Thank you, Bill.
All right, Kathy Riley.
Okay, let me
Oh, I am unmuted. Okay, there we go. Oh, thank you so much, Judith. I also loved everything about your stories. And the stories were so visual for me. I feel like I was with you in the Grand Canyon and, you know, on that bike and everything. So many thoughts. I felt that your story reminded us that one of the gifts of aging is that we have many, many rooms in our house of memory, so many stories. And that's just a wonderful thing to revisit in our own lives. I especially enjoyed your story about the 80s. I was not part of any community then, but again, I felt from your story just the power of music in any movement, and just yes, what a wonderful thing that was. So thank you many times over for this wonderful presentation. And I too am glad it's recorded. And I'm so glad I went to that center lecture that day and got to meet you. And I think I knew at that moment you were going to make it.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you.
That's enough.
Let's see, Sarah Lehan.
Hello. Thank you, Judith. I feel lucky to have been part of many of the stories that you were in, starting from Vancouver, and my very first time singing in front of an audience was when Carol put that chorus together. I wasn't in Minneapolis, I missed that one, but I've been to all the other gala choruses since then, and the Pulse nightclub reception was absolutely wonderful, and thank you very much for all the stories.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Sarah, for saying that.
Right. Robin?
Unmute. Okay. Judith, that was so beautiful. I mean, I was crying during it. It's like you were telling all of our story of those of us who were out through the 80s, 90s, yet you were also capturing your own leadership role. I mean, I wish I could give you an award. I feel like we should be at the, you know, the Gay Colorado Hall of Fame and have you walking up the stage and me handing you roses. I mean, it was beautifully written. It was incredibly well presented, and I'm only sorry that we don't have a better venue so that you could see how much impact you were having on all of us as you were telling it. Incredible. I mean, thank you for the role that you've taken, and thank you for being an historian who could tell this and tell it in such an engaging way that it did have, I mean, it had touch, feel, and smell to it. And thank you for the role that you've had. And I just love some of the quotes that you gave too. That one about teachers being, gay teachers being kind of not their full lives. I always felt that way myself too, that if it weren't that this thing got in the way of so much of my adult life where I had to give so much energy to dealing with the society's response, I could have done so much more. And the quote that you gave just summed that up, distilled it in one line. You just picked some beautiful quotes too. Thank you so much for this. I'm so glad we recorded it, that it's been recorded, and I'm so sorry that you didn't get to do it for the Colorado LGBT Hall of Fame, because you deserve it.
Thank you.
Maybe we're going to start that organization. I love it.
I was just gonna say, don't give her any ideas. She will found that Hall of Fame.
I think Carol, White, and Judith will hold hands, and they'll be our first honorees together. Anybody else want to comment?
So I'll share something else. I mean, I could tell you lots of stories about Judith and her activism, even while she was closeted, but she co-chaired PFLAG National's task force. I'm not sure what they called it, but their efforts to make things better for LGBT youth. And when I moved to San Francisco in '88 without a job, her co-chair on that youth program for PFLAG led me to a job within a week. So there's just so many connections in our community. Our LGBT community is so beautiful.
Yes.
Well said, Tim. Thank you. Yeah.
Carol White had her hand up.
I just want to thank Judith for all the work that she's put into this. She's been working on this for a couple of months. And she had charts up on the wall and everything she wanted to say. And we had to cut it down. We did a tech rehearsal on Zoom the other day. It went wrong. So we had to cut some things out. And today we invited Bob Moore to come, and he couldn't get up on the Zoom, but he wrote back and he said, Judith, wouldn't it take a couple of days to tell your story? And we agreed that it would. But it's been wonderful for 36 years sharing this with Judith, and the two of us having all these choruses together. We have five choruses. And we love them all, and we love you the most, I think. Because you are right here and right now. And I want to say thank you to all the Sage Singers for being a part of this group, and for being here today, and for staying and listening to Judith's story. And we just appreciate all of you and love you all so much. Thank you. Yay, Judith.
Thank you, Carol. I know your story intertwines with Judith's, of course, after 36 years, but you as well, like everybody here, has such a rich history, and they're just all worth telling. So thank you, Judith, for that's the other idea that Judith had come up with, is these second Sunday talks. Mm-hmm. So excellent idea. And I want to say thank you for bugging me in Ireland between my spuds and Jan's Guinness and I don't know. And anyway, I'm so glad I said yes, and I'm so glad everybody here said yes to this group, because it's something else. It's very special.
You know, I was going to say, when we started planning everything out, I used to tell people that I dreamed big, and then I met Judith. And usually I'm the one who's going off the rails with ideas, and other people have to rein me in. And you know, Judith, we would meet and she would say, you know what, we're going to start an international network of Sage Singers choruses. And I said, okay, let's start the one in Denver first. And we're going to be a fixture at every gala festival for the rest of the time. Okay, let's get to Minneapolis first. And she, you know, without those big dreams, we wouldn't have gotten here. So it's been such a joyful process to work with you, Judith. It's been wonderful.
Thank you.
We have maybe time for a couple more comments, or Sue Schaefer, you have to unmute yourself.
Oh, is that coming through?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, Judith, thank you so much for that inspiring story and the history that you gave of the LGBT movement. Brought back so many memories. I'm just so proud of you. I thought I knew you for 40 years, but there's some things that I heard that I really hadn't heard before. But I loved how you traced your immigrant roots and brought all this joy to our community. And it was a very unique enterprise that you took. And I'm with Kevin. I think it will go international. So I'm very proud of you, my friend. And thank you all singers for what you've done to bring this celebration of music to the Denver area, to Colorado, and maybe it will go international. So thank you all.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you.
Lynn wants to say something.
And Ferguson.
Hi there.
Hi, Lynn.
Judith, I've known you for some time now too, and your humility is sweet and endearing. You never set out to be a historian, but you are. You never set out to be powerful, but you are. You never dreamed of being considered beautiful, but you are. I'm very grateful for our friendship, and this was an absolutely gorgeous presentation of all of our journeys, really, through these incredible historical events. Love you.
Thanks, Lynn. Good to see your face.
Lynn sang with harmony, and now she's singing with resonance.
One more time, I want everybody to wave their hands and congratulations, Judith. Job well done. I know you were nervous about it, like everybody who's given their talk is. It takes a lot of work, and you hit the mark, baby. Bingo. Yeah. Kevin, it's to you.
All right. Great. Well, yeah, thanks so much, Judith. That was really fantastic. So have a wonderful week. We will see you all next Sunday.
Bye, Kevin.
Bye.